Hello, dear friends. This is Grandma Jeannie. Welcome back to my workshop. I've been working on the roof for the 1965 Marks house, the ranch house, the one that's known as the Rooster Ranch. This is the roof that lifts up off that house, so it's a very unique construction. And at my last video, I was removing the adhesive or the old dried up masking tape from this piece, and it worked pretty well. But there's a little bit of residue left that I'm not going to try to get off. I'm starting to damage the paint. So I'm going to touch that up with paint and see if I can make it look a little better. Before we paint, I want to tell you again that there was a little dent over here, or it was a kind of a large dent, kind of a caved in sort of dent. And I want to tell you, I've already done my best to straighten that out. And this is how I do that. I use a piece of hardwood floor, and this is a rubber hammer. It looks like metal, but it's rubber. And I lay this on the house, and you have to lay your house down flat against your table. Put the hardwood floor on there and then hammer it until you get that where you want it. That was pretty effective, and that dent looks much better than it did. I've got my palette out here. I put a little bit of masking tape on it for easy cleanup at the end. I've got a drop of white, some black, and some brown. So this looks like it's going to be like a light gray. So I like to make my white pile separate, and then I'll dab a little black in there and see if it truly is gray. Or a lot of times what looks like gray in a dollhouse is actually more of like a taupe. That's why I have to have that brown out there. So I think I've got that too dark. Let's add a little more white back in there. I feel like that looks about right. Let's do a little color sample test on here and see how it looks. Now remember, this often dries, well, it always dries a little darker than it goes on. So I'm just going to dab a little paint on there, then I will check it for the color match and fill in a couple of those little spots. Now I can go back and do a second coat if it's a little bit light. The one thing I want to try, and kind of this is my experiment that I really want to share with you, is I want to try to put a little bit on this area that's still yellowed and see if I can just dab some on there and then wipe it off and have a good effect on that. So just kind of brighten that up a little bit. That really is a pretty good effect. I'm going to do that on all those spots. Just run that a little light coat and then tap it off just to lighten that up a little bit. So it won't be like obviously painted, but it will be a brighter color, a brighter, prettier, cleaner color. And again, if I need to go back over that with a little darker gray, I'll do that. But this doesn't look too bad. All right, let me do it all and then I'll get back and show it to you. I'm pretty happy with that. It looks a lot better than it did when it was brown. Now I might go back and touch it up again. There's a few other spots where there's just a little bit of paint gone or maybe a few scratches or staining. I'm going to touch all those up with the same white light gray color while I've got it out. All right, it's done. I have touched up all the little scratches and the little spots that looked, dingy from that masking tape, or any little dots that didn't look nice and clean. I've touched it up, and it looks better than it's looked for many, many years. That is all I'm going to do tonight, dear friends. The next thing I'm going to do is bring the house up here to my workshop. It has to be cleaned, and it has just a few little spots that needs paint. And I'd like to try to reconstruct some of the missing windows. So come back and join me. And remember, Grandma Jeannie loves you.